So I saw this article this morning on the internet. Tens of thousands with outstanding warrants purged from background check database for gun purchases. Um, the other, the Daily Caller version of this specified there was 500,000 actually, so it's more like hundreds of thousands. After reading the articles, it looks like the FBI and the ATF had two different versions of what they called a fugitive. This was during the Obama administration, and it turned out that the ATF's version of a fugitive was someone crossing state lines that had a warrant, while the FBI was just considering anyone with an arrest warrant out on them to be a fugitive. So the Obama DOJ came to the conclusion that they should use the ATF's version, which obviously is a much more lax version of what to call a fugitive. And that was what they were going to use for the gun database. So this caused a purge of over 500,000 people to be removed from the database that would say they weren't allowed to purchase guns. The definition of fugitive from the dictionary is running away or intended flight. Now, there's a definition on uslegal.com that is the law definition of fugitive. It's a fugitive is a person who flees or escapes. In other words, a refugee. It can also refer to a criminal suspect or witness in a criminal case who flees, evades, or escapes arrest, prosecution, imprisonment, service of process, or giving of testimony by fleeing jurisdiction or hiding. When used in this sense, it is also termed as fugitive from justice. So the interesting part there is at the end it says or hiding. So that seems like it opens it up to anyone who has an arrest warrant and isn't actively turning themselves in. It seems like that would be the smarter version to use, and I feel like this is a problem with Democrats in general. A local example is Baltimore City. All these articles, all these Democrats, all these leftists complaining, oh, the Baltimore City police are corrupt. You've got all these corruption cases, which nobody's denying. There's definitely problems inside the Baltimore City Police Department as far as corruption and things like that. But at the same time, they spent years passing laws to say, oh, well, you can have a drug charge and still become a police officer in the city. You can have drug use and possession charges, and we'll still let you become a cop. They basically made it so pretty much anybody can. They can't. There's very little that they can use to say, no, you have a criminal record, you can't become a police officer. And then they wonder why police officers are criminals. Well, they're not becoming criminals because they're police officers. They were criminals, and you allowed them to become police officers. I mean, that's pretty simple. It's this constant having to lower the standards and say, we can't put people in jail for this, we can't put people in jail for that, and then they complain about crime. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's very backwards. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do if you're gonna try and have little to no laws, but then complain when people are committing crimes. And again, this almost seems like a step towards trying to create gun crime, because it seems like the end game of the Democrats, and a lot of them have been honest about it, is gun confiscation. They want to get rid of the Second Amendment and confiscate guns. And what better way to do that than to lax a bunch of the laws to create gun crime? I mean, again, Baltimore City is an example. The police commissioner was on a few months ago, who I don't think is the police commissioner anymore, and he went on a tirade in a press conference about how they can't do anything about the crime in the city because they can catch a felon with a gun, with an illegal weapon on him, and he doesn't end up in prison. He ends up back out on the streets. I mean, there's one of the best ways to get rid of, without doing what I would prefer and allowing concealed carry and allowing legal people to buy firearms legally much more easily. The best way you can curb gun violence in these inner cities is to up the charges for having an illegal firearm. If you get caught with an illegal gun in one of these cities, why are you not going to prison for multiple years at the very least? I don't understand that. Especially if you're already a convicted criminal. But again, they keep passing laws to say, oh, well, if you're a convicted criminal, it doesn't matter. And then, it's always the fallback of, oh, well, the system's not fair, so you probably weren't really a criminal. Yeah, I mean, that really hasn't worked out. I mean, there's, Baltimore, Chicago, there's plenty of examples of these cities that are just a mess with crime, and they have Democrats running them who do nothing but try and keep people out on the streets. So this story caught my eye this morning on the local news. It's a local county that, now this isn't a law, this is a school board policy, but I think it shows the slippery slope that we're going down, and I don't have any doubt in my mind that at some point Democrats are going to try and pass laws that say similar things. I'd heard about this a few weeks ago, that they were talking about passing this, and the way they described it was they were going to make it against the rules in the school system for kids to wear swastikas or Confederate flags. In my opinion, having swastikas to be the same thing as Confederate flags is a little silly, but even still, that rule it's at least has clear parameters. And then the policy passed, I believe yesterday, and after they read the policy, they said that it banned such things as Confederate flags and swastikas and any symbols of hate and intolerance. So we all know where that's going to go. We saw this during the campaign, kids getting told they have to take off Trump shirts and things like that. So anytime some kid goes up and complains that they don't like someone's shirt, they're gonna have to take it off, and they're gonna be punished and sent home. I mean, it's a very slippery slope, and I understand that to some extent you have to have rules in these schools. You can't have kids wearing cuss words and things like that to school, but I think that these policies need to be written in a much more direct term. Again, when they said Confederate flags and swastikas, at least those were exactly what they were banning, what they were saying you cannot wear. When you have these words like hatred and intolerance, well, what does that mean? Who's to decide what is hatred and intolerance? This is the kind of stuff that they've been passing in the UK, and you're seeing the ramifications from it. You've got people going to jail for Facebook posts and tweets, and people being banned from the country because they don't like something that they said, and it's all down to politics. It has nothing to do with someone actually actively being offended or anything like that. And to be perfectly honest, again, it's the First Amendment. Maybe something offends you that doesn't offend other people. And with the whole school situation, you've got these school walkouts, and I saw some posts on social media that were, it's very surprising. There were apparently some school systems that didn't allow kids to leave, which I think is correct. I mean, didn't allow them to leave without having the same ramifications they would have for leaving in any other situation. Most of these schools, I did some sort of moment of silence inside of the school, but told the students they weren't allowed to leave. And there are parents online getting very angry that their kids weren't allowed to walk out of school, which really is weird to me. I mean, do you send your kids to school so they can walk out? I mean, if I was at work and I wanted to walk out for some political reason and I get up and leave, I would expect to be treated the same way I would in any other situation if I just got up and left, and that's probably being fired. I don't understand why it's any different at school. You have an agreement with the school that you're going to go there and you're going to show up for 6 or 8 hours, however long kids are in school for, and you're going to go to classes and you're going to pay attention and all that, and there are ramifications for when you don't do things like that. There are consequences. And to act like this is any different because it's some political view that you agree with it's stupid. It's completely dumb, and you're just trying to push your politics on people, and it has nothing to do with you thinking that your kid's First Amendment right is being trampled on. And to be perfectly honest, the First Amendment right gets narrowed when they're in school, just like we see from the school policy about not being able to wear swastikas and Confederate flags or anything that could be considered hateful or intolerant. I just cannot believe that people were getting so angry that their kids weren't allowed to get up and walk out of school. It is very strange. And also, this has been brought up by plenty of other people. If they were going to do a pro-life walkout next week, would it get the same reaction? Would these parents be as angry if their kids weren't allowed to get up and walk out because of their pro-life beliefs, or even get as angry if the kids that have pro-life beliefs weren't allowed to do that? We already saw with this anti-gun walkout that any kids that showed any support for gun rights were being punished. So it's all about politics, and it's all about certain politics. It's not about freedom of speech. It's not about the First Amendment. It's about being able to push certain things. It's about being able to talk about certain things and shutting down anyone else who talks about anything else. And it's crazy to me. I don't understand why you get angry, like very angry about your kid not being able to leave school. I can't understand that.